Mauritius. It sounds like a made-up country, doesn't it? Like something out of a cartoon where Bugs Bunny is trying to convince Elmer Fudd it's a real place. Sure, I'm off to Mauritius, Doc. It's right next to, El Dorado. But trust me, folks, this island nation is very real. And its history? Well, let's just say it's more colorful than a parrot wearing a Hawaiian shirt to a rave. Stuck out there in the Indian Ocean, Mauritius has been a pit stop for everyone from sailors with questionable hygiene to colonial powers with even more questionable motives. It's been fought over, traded, and ultimately shaped by a melting pot of cultures. And you know what? It's all the better for it. Today, Mauritius is a paradise. Not just for the tourists who flock to its beaches, but for those who appreciate a good historical yarn. So buckle up, buttercups, because we're about to dive headfirst into the wild ride that is Mauritian history. Now, pinning down the exact moment humans first bumped into Mauritius is a bit like trying to nail jelly to a wall. There's evidence of ancient Indonesian visits, but nothing concrete. Fast forward to around the 9th century and we have the Arab sailors rocking up. These weren't your average lost-at-sea types, mind you. They were skilled navigators, traders, and probably excellent hagglers at the local souk. They dubbed the island Dina Arobi, which, depending on who you ask, means Island of the Arabs or Island of Silver. Now, you'd think discovering an island paradise would be a big deal, right? Front page news, bragging rights at the next sailor's pub crawl. But the Arabs, they were a chill bunch. They hung out, maybe traded some spices, and then sailed off, leaving nary a trace. It's like finding a $20 bill in your old pants, getting excited, and then using it to buy a mediocre sandwich. The potential was there, but sometimes you just settle for the mediocre sandwich. Fast forward a few centuries, and it's the age of exploration. A time when Europeans decided the world was their oyster, and they were the ones with the forks. Enter the Portuguese, those intrepid explorers who loved nothing more than slapping their names on every uncharted piece of land they could find. In 1507, they stumbled upon Mauritius, probably while looking for a good place to park their ships and catch some rays. They called it Cerny, after a type of swan, which, let's be honest, is a pretty underwhelming name for an island paradise. But the Portuguese, much like that $20 bill, didn't stick around for long. They were more interested in the spice trade in India, and Mauritius was just a pit stop, a place to stretch their sea legs and maybe grab a coconut or two. It wasn't until the Dutch showed up in 1598 that things started to get interesting. They named the island Mauritius, after Prince Maurice of Nassau, which, let's be honest, is a slight improvement over Kearney. The Dutch, however, weren't exactly known for their environmentalism. They chopped down ebony trees, hunted dodos, yes, those dodos, and generally treated the island like an all-you-can-eat buffet. By 1710, they'd had their fill and decided to abandon ship, leaving behind a legacy of ecological destruction and a severe lack of dodos. Now, you'd think that after the Dutch debacle, Mauritius would be given a chance to recover, maybe put its feet up and watch some waves crash on the shore. But no, because in 1715, the French waltzed in, all berets and baguettes, ready to turn the island into their own little slice of paradise. They renamed it Île-de-France because, well, when you're French, everything sounds better in French. The French, unlike their predecessors, were in it for the long haul. They established plantations, brought in slaves from Africa, and generally went about turning Mauritius into a thriving colony. They introduced sugarcane, which, for better or worse, would become the island's economic backbone for centuries to come. They also built roads, bridges, and even a fancy new capital city, Port Louis, named after, you guessed it, King Louis XIV. The French period was a time of significant transformation for Mauritius, laying the groundwork for the multicultural society it is today. Section 5, God Save the Queen, quite literally. But just when things were getting cozy, Napoleon decided to conquer Europe, which, as you can imagine, put a bit of a damper on things. See, Britain and France, they had this little rivalry going on, a sort of historical game of anything you can do, I can do better. So, naturally, when Napoleon started throwing his weight around, Britain wasn't going to just sit back and watch. In 1810, the British sailed in and, after a surprisingly short battle, took control of Mauritius. They renamed it, rather unimaginatively, Mauritius again, proving that even empires can suffer from a lack of creativity. The British, ever the pragmatists, decided to keep the sugarcane industry going, but they weren't too keen on the whole slavery thing. Section 6, From Chains to Sugarcane Fields. Now, the abolition of slavery in 1835 was a momentous occasion, a victory for human rights and all that jazz, but it also created a bit of a problem for the British. Who was going to work on the sugarcane plantations? Enter the indentured laborers, mostly from India, who were brought in to fill the void. It wasn't exactly a fair trade. These laborers faced harsh conditions, low wages, and a whole lot of homesickness. But they persevered, their culture and traditions weaving themselves into the fabric of Mauritian society. Today, Indo-Mauritians make up a significant portion of the island's population, their influence evident in everything from the food to the music to the colorful festivals. Section 7. Freedom Calypso. For the next century or so, Mauritius remained under British rule, a period marked by both progress and unrest. There were improvements in education, healthcare, and infrastructure, but there was also growing discontent with colonial rule. By the mid-20th century, the winds of change were blowing across the globe, and Mauritius was caught in the breeze. The independence movement gained momentum, led by charismatic figures like Sir C. Wusagur Ramgoolam. Finally, on March 12, 1968, Mauritius gained its independence, raising its own flag and embarking on a new chapter in its history. Trust me, it's one you don't want to miss.